Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Sacramento, California, and the Department of Consumer Affairs, first floor hearing room, 1625 North Market, Sacramento. It is August 24th, 2017, and it is approximately 9 a.m. Before we call for a quorum, if everyone could just introduce, I'll start with you, Leah, so that the court reporter knows exactly who would be speaking, have questions in the future.
Leah Brew, LPCC member.
Max Disposti, public member.
Tamara Ashley, public member.
Deborah Brown, public member.
Betty Conley, LEP member.
Renee Launer, LCSW member.
LEP member.
Christine Whitlisbach, public member.
Peter Chu, public member.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
I would like to now call to order and establish a quorum.
Good morning. Dr. Leah Brew, Max Disposti,
Here.
Samara Ashley,
Here.
Deborah Brown,
Here.
Betty Conley,
Here.
Renee Launer, Dr. Christine Whitlisbach,
Here.
Dr. Peter Chu,
Here.
Christina Wong.
Here.
For the record, Sarita Coley is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2, public comment for items not on the agenda. Comment. If you would come forward, please, and then speak into one of the microphones.
Can you hear me from here? Do I need to get closer? Is this okay here? Okay. Well, good morning, board. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Jacqueline Kira, and I just wanted to come to the board this morning to address something that I noticed was on this morning's agenda, which is the length of the time that it takes to process board complaints. I personally filed a complaint in November.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Just one moment. Just for clarification, we're off the record. That's okay. When we begin the petition, I'll let you know and we'll go on the record. I didn't want you to overexert yourself for no reason. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead and continue.
Okay.
What's that? We're on the record as far as the Board of Behavioral Sciences board meeting. We are not on the record as far as the petition that will be heard as one of the agenda items. There are two different processes. Does that make sense? The court reporter is here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. The court reporter is here to make a record of the petition that will be heard as item number 4. And that is a administrative hearing process that the board is participating in today. The board's meeting is on the record. It's recorded. It's being it's an official board meeting. It's being recorded as far as I know. But the court reporter is just going to take down what we say during the petition process. Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you. I just wanted to stress to the board, just so that you have some kind of a connector to what's going on in the public and how this is directly affecting us. My case, and I will not get into specifics, but it's a family law matter. There was a custody evaluator appointed in my case that has been previously accused by our Attorney General's office for misconduct. And that accusation was sent by the board to the Attorney General's office. They were not able to secure a conviction because they couldn't enter the custody evaluation as evidence at that time, which I know Ms. Madsen has done work to get that changed. I am directly affected by all of this, in that this woman was hired by my abusive ex-husband and paid $33,600. Yes.
I'm so sorry, but I just have a question for our attorney before you go any further. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to talk about something else. So, well, can I speak generally about the process? So I'll just say, without giving any more further information, I filed a complaint in November. It is now August. I have received 0 response from the board. I have every single document. Everything is ready to go. I am waiting on someone to please address this. So if there's any way that, I know that there's several items on your agenda, but speeding up the process of these complaints, if there's any way to get this rectified, I'm hoping that that can be done, because it's affecting children's lives. I'll just say that. I'd also like to request that you, as the board, look into the use of parental alienation syndrome and parental alienation by any of your clinicians. This, and I can say, as seeing thousands of cases that are similar, when a child is disclosing abuse, a clinician that believes in parental alienation, there's oftentimes they will just say that the child's been coached instead of believing the child, and it's incredibly harmful. You can only imagine, as a child, if there's one case where that child is reporting abuse and it's legitimate and they're not believed, the devastation that that could cause. So, thank you.
Else have a comment?
I'm taller, so I'm.
Okay, public comment is closed.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you, okay, sorry.
Hi, yes, I'm Katherine Campbell. I'm with the California Protective Parents Association, and I appreciate this time for public comment. Thank you for having us. We have done a lot of work to help parents who are going through difficult situations, and we are an organization that basically started 18 years ago because we realized in California, if you report abuse of your spouse, you have an 85% chance of losing custody to the abuser. And a lot of the process that we've looked into deals with your licensed professionals who come in and work either as evaluators or therapists with these children to try to help, or as a co-parent counselor. We have done surveys and projects that have been done that 82% of mothers who start with primary custody, after going through these evaluation processes and with these counselors, only 12% of mothers retain custody after the proceedings. And of those, 2/3 of the children, after they have been taken from a protective parent, are actually continuing to report abuse. We know that many of the complaints that have been filed with your board have been dismissed. We've heard of multiple complaints against the same people, and we're hearing that complaints are not being processed correctly. This is actually something very important. I know you're probably all aware of the ACE study that was done with the CDC and Kaiser Permanente. It usually takes about 20 years before this great research comes into effect where we can implement the changes that are needed. We are seeing that children who have adverse childhood experiences are experiencing adult illnesses, losing 20 years off their life if they have 4 of these, and we know what we can do right. And when we dismiss abuse claims and we're not trauma informed, we are allowing children what we've learned is, yes, children are resilient, and there is resiliency, and there's a lot of positive work that we have seen that children can come out of this. But we certainly know they don't come out of it if they're continued to be placed in the trauma situation. You cannot come out of trauma when you are still in trauma. When you are still being abused, you cannot be resilient. You can survive, you can cope, Of course, as we know from the ACE study, the odds of you becoming an alcoholic, starting alcohol and drugs while you're in school, not finishing school, teenage pregnancies, suicide rates, and we're seeing this high rates in California. This is when we know better, you can do better. It's not necessarily the case. You have to choose to do better. And we have realized that we are not keeping people accountable and holding them accountable. And when we do not hold them accountable, we are hurting our future generation when it's unnecessary. So I am asking that it become an agenda item, that we discuss this at the next board meeting, and we fully come to an understanding that while we want to dismiss some things and we just don't want to think about it, we're at a point where, because as an adult, we don't want to think that's happened because it's too much for us to think about. That means we would rather a child stay in abuse because it's too much for an adult to think about. As a board, I'm asking you to look at this, to add it to the agenda, and to ensure that we can continue to care for our children and California. As I said, 85% chance of losing custody if you report abuse in the court system for family court. The other states, it's 60 to 75. So it's the worst that we have seen in California. And I appreciate the work that you are doing. I know there's a lot of good work, but I know we can improve and we can do better. So I thank you, and I hope that we can put this on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Sweat. I'm a lawyer. I also have an MBA from the Wharton School with a double major in financial and strategic management. Early in my career, I started out as a family law lawyer. I loved my clients. I believed I was a counselor at law, and I believed it was my job to help people through trying times, encouraging them to be the best versions of themselves. I did not believe that it was ethical to become filthy rich, preying on the misery of families that were breaking up and using their children as pawns. I'm probably one of the few libertarian capitalists in California, and yet I think that this is a disgusting way to make money. The divorce industry is a $50 billion a year industry. This is a travesty. With families breaking up, I promise you, people do need to get divorced. I needed to get divorced, but that doesn't mean we turn it into a free-for-all. I have a friend who's a NASA scientist who just came back from Germany, and she says that they have a cap of a $10,000 that a divorce can cost in Germany. I'm not suggesting we implement this, though it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but I'm telling you we are in crisis. I left the practice of law because I realized that other lawyers were not there to do what I was there to do. They were harming their clients. My clients loved me. I believed that I counseled them well to be the best versions of themselves and to put their children first. I did not argue about lamps. I did not encourage abusers, and people that needed help were told to get help. I left the practice because the lawyers that I had to deal with were disgusting. 30 years later, I came back because I had my own divorce. If I thought this system was broken in 1989, I had no idea where it would end up. It's a mess. Number one, I'm going to be very frank. I think the therapeutic community's involvement in the judicial system is a travesty and a violation of people's rights. I personally have a private therapist. She's very good, and I benefit greatly. But their use in the courts is a violation of constitutional rights with no accountability, and the stories I'm hearing are absolutely devastating. My case is actually one of the more mild ones. I'm just married to a narcissist jerk. He didn't beat me and he didn't molest our children, but these are the stories I'm hearing from children and mothers, and this is a problem. And I'm also seeing that the custody evaluators, whether they be licensed psychologists, and yes, I have spoken to the board, and I'm also speaking to the Judicial Commission. I'm going around and holding all of these boards accountable. marriage and family therapists as well. That's why I'm here today. They need to be properly trained and they need to be held accountable. They need to not be committing perjury and they need to be sticking with the facts. And all of these fake scientific theories and the beliefs that women get divorced for no reason at all and that they're alienating people, none of this has any basis. This is a problem. As I look at your enforcement numbers, and now we're going to go, that's just an overview. You haven't heard the last of me, and I'll be around for a long time. This is now my calling and will be my life's work. Given your budget, I'm concerned about the lack of discipline, and I'm concerned about the time it takes for these complaints to come to fruition. I would be very interested in knowing what percentage of the complaints derive from family law matters versus private therapy. In private therapy, the client is free to go if they think that the therapist is not helping them, but not so in family law. We are being held hostage by people who are often of the lowest moral character and have an adversarial relationship with facts and truth. What percentage of the complaints are filed by women versus men in both family law and private matters? Do you know this? What percentage of the complaints are filed against male versus female practitioners? What percentage of the complaints are filed against therapists who have multiple complaints in any reporting year? And what percentage of the complaints are filed against therapists who have multiple complaints against multiple years? It would be my opinion that where there's smoke, there's fire, and you need to know this. These are the strictly numbers types of examples. I'm also concerned that the people that are evaluating these complaints have the proper credentials. There's a case that my friend has, all of these are professional women, against the Board of Psychology, where upon investigation, she discovered that the people reviewing the complaints were two lay people and a nurse with a retired license. These are not the proper people to be reviewing the behavior of their peers. Only people that are trained and have special training to review these in that profession are qualified to review peers. Therefore, if you're reviewing an LMFT, you need to be of that same educational level, and furthermore, you need specific specialized training in ethics and the canons that govern your profession. The same goes for psychologists. You should not be reviewing the work of psychologists if you're a lay person or a retired nurse. I have nothing against lay people or retired nurses. They're simply not the correct people. There's a lack of transparency in all these boards, and I'm not singling you out here today. I'm simply saying that we need accountability. We need it very badly. I just wrote that email to my daughter's PE teacher yesterday when she wasn't doing what she's supposed to do, thanks to a corrupt therapist who decided that she should be primarily with a father who is absent mentally, physically, and emotionally from his life. And I wrote to the PE teacher and said, accountability is the key to maturity. These children need to grow up with role models and role modeling. Where we are right now is a big bloody mess. I don't think anybody wants to be here, but that's where we are. And I'm here to tell you that I am prepared to use my resources, my education, my experience, and my stories, and those of other women to be an agent for change. We need to embrace that something has gone terribly wrong, and it is our job to fix it. We are not ostriches. Our head in the sand isn't going to work anymore. I liken this to the scandal that rocked the Catholic Church. This is the exact same scandal in the secular forum, I assure you. Let's put some sunshine as a disinfectant, bring this out of the closet, and deal with these very serious issues. It is not going away, and our children are out of time. Thank you today.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item. Item number 3, any suggestions for future agenda items? Then we will move on to item number 4, and that's petition for early termination of probation for Laura Lee Ann Carter. And if Laura Ann Lee could come up to the table, and you're her representative, counsel. At this point in the meeting, I'm going to turn this over now to our judge. And so for the remainder of the meeting, and at least for this hearing, this will be.
Thank you. Let's go on the record. Good morning. We are before the Board of Behavioral Sciences to review the petition for early termination of probation of Laura Lee Carter, OAH number 2017-070755. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge. I've been assigned to preside over this matter. We previously established that there is a quorum for this morning's meeting. May I take the appearance of counsel, please, starting with the Deputy Attorney General. Thank you.
Good morning, Philip Arthur from the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. And on behalf of petitioner.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Steve Frankel, Frankel. I'm here to represent Laura Lee Carter.
Thank you. And for the record, Ms. Carter is present today.
Couldn't hear you.
Could we just remind you to make sure the little green light is on your microphone and speak right into the microphone so that we can get it on the webcast?
Try it again.
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Steve Frankel, Frankel, and I'm here representing Laura Lee Carter at this meeting.
Thank you. Okay. On behalf of the Attorney General's office, Mr. Arthur, did you want to begin?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. And I'll just begin briefly stating that I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the court in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the court has adequate information from which to make a decision. And just to provide a brief overview of the case, on May 15th, 2015, Ms. Carter was issued a probationary associate clinical social worker registration for 3 years based upon her conduct between November 2010 and June 2011, where she provided therapy services to clients in California without proper licensure. And if I could present the court with the evidence packet in this case?
Thank you.
And the packet, if it can be marked as Exhibit 1, consists of Ms. Carter's petition and all accompanying documents that she provided, the decision and order in the case, Ms. Carter's quarterly reports from her billing monitor, the notice of hearing for this hearing today, and Ms. Carter's license certification. I move to submit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Mr. Frankel, do you have any objections to this document?
Sorry, couldn't hear you, Your Honor.
Do you have any objections to the petition packet
No,
being
Your Honor.
admitted? Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. And because the burden is on Ms. Carter, I have no further statement, but would reserve the right to question her.
Thank you. Mr. Frankel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, members of the board. I'm Steve Frankel. I have a MFT license from 1969 that's been inactive for a few years, and a psychologist license, and I'm an attorney at law. I'm a little bit underdressed for you this morning because we just moved to Sonoma County, and it's 27 years worth of boxes, and trying to find the clothes that I would normally wear with your presence has been impossible. So I'm here as I am. I represent Laura Lee Carter, who I know as Lori. She has been licensed and has practiced as an LCSW, actually LICSW, in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota for 15 years or thereabouts total. 20 years she's trained with the most senior people in the trauma world, Bessel van de Kolk for one, and there's never been anything that has been troublesome for her before in terms of licensing and licensing actions or lawsuits. She came to California. Her daughter lives here, has children, family, and she came to be near her daughter and to establish a practice here. What she believed she was doing at the time was offering education and consultation, but she had no control over the fact that several of the people that she consulted for wanted to build their insurance companies for the services that she was providing as a consultant, not as a treater. And then she committed the kind of problem that many of us in mental health commit. She was nice. She wrote the codes, and he submitted them to his insurance company, and his insurance company said, wait, she's not licensed to practice in California, and the rest is history. This was one of the darkest, if not the darkest, moments of her life. She went through a very difficult time during the period of time that this was happening. Among the things that were difficult for her is that she served in the armed forces of this country in Afghanistan, where she was subjected to sexual assault by fellow soldiers. Her experience of time during that period was dark and overwhelming. She has since, and this is the point I want to make to you, and you'll be able to talk with her about it today, she has engaged in one of the most productive, consistent, appropriate efforts at rehabilitation I've ever seen in all the years that I've been working both as a mental health professional and as an attorney for mental health professionals. And you'll have a chance to talk with her about the nature of her progress through consultation with colleagues, therapy, and her involvement in the work that she does. And my belief is that she will be able to convince you that this termination of probation that she's requesting is deserved and appropriate. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do you want to have your client give a statement or give the Attorney General the...
I'm sorry.
Did you want to have your client make a statement, or do you want the Attorney General to ask some questions first?
I would invite the members of the board to ask questions.
Okay.
And my client can answer those.
Okay. Typically what we do is have the Attorney General ask some foundation questions and then open it up to the board, if that works for you.
Whatever process Your Honor wishes, that's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Arthur.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Carter. What factors do you believe led to your probationary term?
Well, there were a number of events that occurred in my life that hadn't occurred before.
Could you please speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Oh, okay. I came to California following a major surgery, and had never been compromised with any medical procedure, health procedures, and it was very difficult. I had not made a definite decision whether I was going to live in California permanently or not. I thought I may go back to Minnesota after my recovery, and I was staying with my daughter, who has 3 granddaughters, and in the transition during that time, I had done a lot of consultation work in California before I moved out here, and so I was not unknown.
Can you say that again? You were not
unknown, and so it was not unusual for therapists that knew me to ask for those services. I was not prepared to make a move. I didn't understand all the legalities, and that was based on ignorance. I didn't know that one of the people that I saw was sending in information to the insurance company and signing my name to HICFA. when the insurance company called me, they asked me for a signed informed consent. I did not get that sent in right away. My nephew, my sister called, and my nephew had died from an overdose a week after I had gotten the request from the insurance company. I was also working out of state at that time, and when I returned, then there was an event between my parents at the end of that summer where there was a severely violent incident where my father was arrested and my mother was in the hospital, and I was the sibling that had to attend to that event.
Why do you want an early termination of probation?
I've completed all of the requirements of my stipulations. And I've exceeded those requirements in many ways. I have, I'm currently in a PhD program, and last year engaged in a research project on the particular kind of work that I do. I'm a trauma therapist, and there's a lot that I can't do. I can't do trainings, which I am prepared for. I've been educated and trained for. I can't do publishing, and there's limitations that I have now that I would like to move on with my career.
What have you learned during your probationary term that will assist you in not repeating the conduct that's described in the accusation and statement of issues?
I've learned a lot of things. I've developed very thorough, meticulous boundaries in my practice with from engaging for the first phone call with a client to every single piece of paperwork. I have a person that does keeps track of all of my accounts and sends super bills and billing or statements to clients every month, and she manages very meticulously that part of my practice. I am involved in a consultation group monthly. I also have a specialized consultant for trauma work because it is a risky practice. I also have a lot of support with friends and community and colleagues, and I also maintain therapy with a very seasoned, well-trained therapist that understands what I've been through in the last 2 years and the practice that I'm engaged.
Beyond everything that you just said, are there any other assurances that you could provide to the board that the conduct described in the accusation and statement of issues will not be repeated?
I feel like I've developed every safeguard that I can think of, that consultants and the woman that I'm in therapy in, that I have been or throughout this time. I believe I've implemented everything I've gotten feedback on and everything that I've had insight about myself.
In reviewing your petition packet, I saw in there that you attribute some of the conduct that happened to an inability to control your impulses. Is that correct?
Oh, I did say that when I made the move to California, that was impulsive decision. Was following major surgery. I had never had surgery. I had pretty severe reactions to anesthesia and was not sure, and neither was the physician, of what the recovery of that was going to be. So I was fearful, and that's why I used the word impulsive when I came to stay with my daughter.
How do you control your impulses now so that you ensure you make good decisions?
I take time to think things through with professional decisions. If I have anything that I'm concerned or unsure about, if there are legal questions, I call Steve. I have him on retainer per year. I have clinical consultants. I don't hesitate to ask questions when I need to. And I also have a lot of self-discipline. I maintain a regular routine of self-care and self-maintenance that I practice every day.
And in the petition packet, and as you've described to the board, you attribute a lot of the conduct that's at issue to stress that you were experiencing in your life, including family stress. How have you learned to manage stress in your life, including family stress?
Some of those things have resolved of their own accord. My father passed away a year ago, and that has led to a lot of resolution of a lot of stress. Part of the therapeutic process that I've been in the last 2 years is I have a primary therapist, and I also did some very specific trauma work with someone who's got a 25-year career in providing services for that.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for Ms. Carter? We can start on my right with Ms. Brew.
Hi, thank you for coming in. I wanted to ask you, from your perspective now, having worked on trauma in your own life, what do you see as the difference between consultation and therapy?
Oh, consultation is where I talk about, gosh, there's quite a number of differences. I'm in a consultation group, and the dynamics there are very different. A lot of that is learning, a lot of information and how other therapists are working, plus presenting cases of my own. My individual consultation is more presenting cases, but also working with the countertransference and talking about those processes.
So did you have that nuance difference before, or is this sort of a newer insight for you? I'm just trying to get a sense of...
I did have those before. I didn't have the level of expertise that I have now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned that you engaged in self-care, and I assume therapy is one of them, and your consultation stuff for your professional life. But when difficulties arise in your life, what other self-care measures do you take?
I have very close relationships with my family, with friends. I have hobbies that I'm engaged in that I really enjoy, that are relaxing. I have a meditation practice that I enjoy. I mean, I have a number of things that I participate in that keep me grounded.
Good. Thank you so much.
I don't have actually any particular questions. I just wanted to express my, I'm sorry for everything you went through, and I just wanted to share my, it was a hard read to see everything that happened, and but we thank you for being here today, because that really helps us to understand him further, and thank you again for your services as well. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. You talked about developing every safeguard that you can to practice safely in the future. Can you just describe that for us, please?
Has been, well, I took 42 hours of continuing education on ethics and legalities of practice. I took a class on navigating insurance, so I really understood what, and developed with the person that taught that. I hired her as a consultant. It wasn't a stipulation from the board, and hired her to help me develop a billing consent form with clients that people sign, understanding that I don't take insurance, I don't deal with insurance companies, and I don't provide that information other than a super bill. And so that's been a safeguard. I have had my informed consent thoroughly read and legal advice on that. What else? I went back to school. This is my second year of that program. So I'm keeping myself well educated and informed. And the self-care practices, and I found the best consultants I could that are in the field that I'm in.
Thank you for coming in. I have just a couple of questions. I noticed that your clinical consultant is in DC, is that correct?
Yes.
If the issue of California laws ever come up, because I know you do trauma work.
Yes.
So how does that consultant help you in that area? Or do you see someone else, or how would they know that that's even coming up, kind of?
If I have any questions, I've done two things. I talked to Dr. Frankel, and I have called the legal services at NASW if I've had questions.
Right, great. And I noticed in your reporting about how you work with your billing person, Julie.
Yes.
That there are times that you block out a very large amount of time for a client and collect a check ahead of time for that block of time. Is that correct?
You mean when they come in for the session? I do, when I do intensives. I do, that's the research I've done in the last year is on the intensives. And I require 50% because it's such a big chunk of time so I require a 50% down on that service, just that one service.
That's what I'm asking about. What happens if the client doesn't use I think it's 14 to 18 hours or something? What if for some reason they don't use that amount of time?
That does happen consistently, and what clients request is, well, we wait until the end of the intensive before they pay the balance of the fee. And usually what they want to do, in fact, probably 100% of the time, if I don't think I've had anyone not do this, is they pay the balance of the fee. And if there are hours, like an hour and a half or 2 hours that weren't used in the intensive, then they want to move that forward for a follow-up appointment.
Are there any times when you refund some of that because they just simply haven't used it or don't intend to use it?
That hasn't ever happened.
Okay, and I have one last question with
Okay.
insurance. I understand that insurance companies don't pay for an intensive, but they sometimes pay for an hour. Do you give a client a super bill so they can get reimbursement for their 1 hour?
Yes.
Thank you.
And actually, when I lived in Minnesota and practiced, that's where I started developing the intensive work. The insurance companies did pay because it was a smaller population of therapists and it was very specialized work. And the case managers got to know me and saw the effectiveness of the work, and so they did pay for it.
Well, maybe they will in California someday. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Once again, I would like to express a sentiment that you've been through a lot, and also I do appreciate your service for this country. So I just have a couple of simple questions. The way I understand it, the issue is that because the fact that you did not have a California license and you were doing some work, and that raised the insurance company's question, that the insurance company raised the question whether that is reimbursable. Is that part of the issue? Because the fact that you didn't have a license and it wasn't the service wasn't billed properly to the insurance company?
Well, it was a non-billable service.
So I would like to go back to Dr. Brew's question. That is, in your mind, what kind of service you provide as so-called consulting service versus treatment or therapy? I mean, what service you actually provided to the client in California, the services in question?
Oh, in the past?
Yeah, the question that raised the red flag for the insurance company.
Well, under the California law, now this was changed in 2016, I believe, was that if you were specialized, you could provide services to patients in a therapist's office who was licensed or is licensed in California. If the patient was referred by that therapist and you used their phone, you used their fax machines, you used their office, and provided a specialized service with or without the therapist, but in collaboration with the therapist. And so that's what I was doing.
I guess, forgive me, because I'm not in this field. So is there any difference between consulting and actually therapy? I mean, whatever your service provides to the client. I guess that's this part I'm not clear. What actually did for the client,
It was providing EMDR services.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chu, for asking my question. I actually also want to clarify with you what actually the services that you provided. So it seems that you did provide the EMDR services directly to the client. So because, you know, according to the document, you know, it seems that you were providing consultation instead of therapy. But it seems like, you know, under California, in my understanding at least, EMDR is actually therapy.
Just one moment. I'm not sure that that was a question, Ms. Wong. I heard a statement that your understanding is that EMDR is not therapy. So what is your question for
No, I
Ms.
said
Carter?
EMDR is therapy. So my question to her, well, actually, I did make a statement. So, you know, so because it seems to me that, you know, according to the document, what Ms. Carter said, you know, the situation that caused her, that led to disciplinary action was about the consultation, you know, that she provided, and then with the wrong billing code. So, you know, so I was just trying to clarify what actually the services that she provided at that point. And so, you know, whether it was consultation or whether it was therapy. So that was just what my statement. So, yeah, it's my statement. So I guess that, you know, I also want to get Ms. Carter's understanding that, you know, now, because, you know, you've already been disciplined, you know, now you're appearing in front of the board, that, you know, whether you have a different understanding about the services that you provide to the clients now, because I think that we have to move forward, you know, so that we make sure that the mistake you made, you know, is not going to repeat again. So, does it make sense to you? So I think, you know, I guess that I'm just checking to see if, you know, whether you have obtained a clear understanding or the differentiation between the consultation and therapy, you know, whether you understand the services, the nature of the service that you provide to the client.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, just want to be clear. In my mind, part of the issue is whether you actually provided consultation service versus treatment. So is it your understanding that part of the disciplinary action or the reason for disciplinary action is because you're providing quote-unquote consulting service, but you actually provided treatment services?
What I did with the EMDR was with assessing more information regarding a clinical picture of the client for the therapist. The therapist was the primary therapist in each case, not me.
So you still do not consider you actually provided treatment services to your client at that time, is that right?
Excuse me for a minute.
And just before Ms. Carter provides her response, I'd just like to make sure the record reflects that for the previous question and this question, before providing her answer, she conferred with her attorney.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Carter.
There was a blur about that, and there isn't any longer.
Any further questions from the board?
So Ms. Carter, now, because you are specialized in trauma work. So when you have, a client asking for doing EMDR again, so when in your billing, what would you be billing for? Let me simplify the question. Will you bill for therapy, or, or you don't bill at all?
I don't bill at all. Julie provides 1 hour individual codes when she sends a super bill to clients. EMDR doesn't have a specific code.
Okay.
And when I would provide clients with receipts, what I gave them was what the person that had done billing for me in Minnesota told me to write down, which was 90899, which in Minnesota was a no code.
So do you take clients, for the EMDR that only with a primary therapist, or you become the primary therapist for the client? Means that, normally, ethically, we don't do 2 clients at the same time, two therapists simultaneously. So will you, so what type of clientele you take? That have a therapist or not have a therapist?
I do both. And it's not unusual in the EMDR community to do adjunct work for very specific referrals, like a car accident or flying phobia or sudden violent death or suicide or any of those things. And then the clients will do the work. I'll provide the information back to the therapist, and then they'll continue.
I have one last question.
Sure.
So will you consider retaining your billing monitor person, Julie?
Oh,
after?
yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Brew?
I just need some clarity. So are you asserting that you actually did therapy and didn't think you were at the time, and now you're clear that it was? Or are you asserting that you didn't do therapy, you did consultation?
I thought I was doing consultation, and what I was doing fit under those auspices. I understand that that is not true.
Okay.
And
so-
that was blurry, and now I'm very, very clear.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were doing EMDR, you were thinking because you were the EMDR person and they had a therapist that it was consultation. Now you're really clear that EMDR is therapy. Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a quick follow-up question.
All
Thank
right.
you. Are you providing any services for clients outside of California? You're not licensed in California. Do you consult or provide any services for patients outside of California?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all. Mr. Arthur, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Frankel? Okay, if there's nothing further, then this matter, I'm sorry. Did either of you want to make a closing statement, Mr. Arthur?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and Mr. Frankel, any closing statements? Okay, just make sure you're close to the microphone.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Just make sure that you're close to the microphone when you make your closing statement.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
As I said in my introduction, this is a person who was going through one of the darkest periods of time in a human life and made errors. there was confusion between what is consultation and what is actual treatment. Although I think from my own conversations with her, she viewed trying out something like the EMDR as a way of telling the primary care primary care therapist that EMDR works with this person or EMDR doesn't work with this person. Her vision was that she was doing consultation. What she came to learn was that that's not the case, that the blur between consultation and treatment is, she was in the middle of that blur, sometimes over the line. To say that she regrets that is an understatement. You got a sense of the kind of person that she is from her responses. And I'm glad to represent her today before you. I think that this is, I feel strongly supportive of for all the best reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then at this point, this matter is submitted. The record is closed. We're off the record. Thank you. The board will, I'm sure that Mr. Frankel has explained this to you. The board will convene and you can expect a decision after 30 days. I'm not actually sure what the board's process is, but I'd just like to let folks know that there's no decision today, okay? Before you and Mr. Frankel and Mr. Arthur, before you leave, if you could pick up a billing sheet from the court reporter. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's back to you.
Thank you, Ron.
At this point, the board will be going into a closed session, but we'll give a few minutes to let them take care of business. And we're going to do a 10-minute recess. So maybe 10:15 back, since we have to travel.